Would you still use the phrase
collateral?
Would you still use the phrase collateral damage?
Yes, of course I would.
So 3,000 dead Israelis would be a price worth paying for the pursuit of Hamas.
I didn't say the Palestinians.
Well, what are you saying, Stuart? What are you saying?
I'm just saying it's very important to be specific and be very.
I am being specific.
Language.
I am being.
No,
I am. I'm saying what would your chiefly hinges upon the question of whether or not we've reached the point that it often seems we will always reach, which is where, in defense of its existential right, Israel will undertake actions that brook no criticism or even perhaps accommodation of international law. That's all. It's not a question of whether they have the right to do that or whether they should do that. It's a question of whether or not that is where we actually are. Stuart is in Harrow. Stuart, what would you like to say?
I don't think that they're not being criticised. There's lots of restraint being urged by UK and America. I also think there's a bit of a false equivalence with the kind of killing of Palestinian children or adults and Israelis. I mean, one is too many, and one life are equal, but one has been killed on purpose, and the other is that awful phrase, collateral damage. So I don't think it helps anyone to say they're murdering them when there's no proof that they are. I mean, there obviously might be some soldiers who do some terrible things, but in general, you'd have to assume that they're doing everything they do is for security reasons and their own protection. Now, you could argue that they, that
well, I don't have to assume that, because I don't think it is, and there's lots of people. No, hang on, just let me tell you why. Because you've even got families of the victims now in Israel complaining that this looks more like revenge than not.
Well, they're saying it's not revenge, and
they're saying it. Look, they're saying the families of the victims are saying it does look like revenge.
The families of which victims?
The victims of the October the 7th terror attack.
That's fine. That's an opinion. It doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean they're right.
I'm just saying you can't talk about what people can and can't presume when the families of the dead are actually saying this looks more like revenge than it does look like sort of tactical response. That's all. It's important that their voice is heard. No, I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what they think.
Well, you can presume. You're saying you can presume. You're saying you actually can presume. Well, you can't presume either way. I'm not presuming, and you're not presuming. Okay. You're here. You're in the safety of London.
Yes.
You just don't know. We just don't know. They could do.
What? Sorry, I think I distracted you there semantically, which is unhelpful. So I apologise. What your central point is that you said you don't like the false equivalence, but to make that point, then you have to, and then you use the word collateral. Then you use the word collateral damage. So you're saying that it doesn't matter how many Palestinian people die, it will never be as bad as the murdered Israelis on October the 7th.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
What's you saying?
One is too many. I just say it doesn't help. I just say it doesn't help to call the Israelis murderers and killing, and to make an equivalence between what happened, the massacre, people doing something on purpose, and people not killing people on purpose.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
That's where I struggle.
One life is the same.
How can you say it's not on purpose?
Sorry. They're not killing. Their aim, the motivation is not to go and kill children.
What is it?
Not their motivation. It's to eradicate Hamas. And Hamas, the existential threat from Israel comes from Hamas. Have you read their founding charter?
Yes, of course I have. I quote it regularly on the programme.
So there you are. So their existential threat is real and it's from someone next door.
But they are not. The Palestinians that are being killed deliberately.
They are not.
You can't shoot. You can't fire a missile by accident. Well, you can, but that's not. No one's claiming that that's what's happening here. Can I run something by you, Stuart?
Sure.
What if Hamas was hiding in Israel? What would the Israeli government do then to eradicate them?
They would seek them out.
But no, what would they do? Would they adopt the same policies? Would they be blowing up Israeli hospitals after issuing a warning to get all the patients out of intensive care?
That's another myth, isn't it? They haven't blown up a hospital.
Well, don't let me distract you from the question I asked. How do you think the Israel? No. I said that they have, prior to presumably bombarding it, they've issued an order to evacuate from the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City. So we can agree on what the facts are. Let's not get distracted from the central question. If Hamas was hiding in Israel, what policies would you still approve of the Israeli collateral damage approach to eradicating Hamas?
I don't approve of anything. I don't disapprove or approve of anything.
Okay. Would you still use the phrase collateral? Would you still use the phrase collateral damage?
Yes, of course I would.
So 3,000 dead Israelis. What are you saying?
I'm just saying it's very important to be specific and be very
I am
careful
being specific.
with language.
I am
No,
being.
you're not.
I'm saying, what would
You
your...
can presume that Israel are murdering...
No, I've done the opposite of that.
Bible.
I've done the opposite of that. I spent 20 minutes at the top of the show outlining the existential motivation of Israel's actions, talked about Dagestan, and I said people will have a problem with however I do this, and I'm grateful to you for proving that. But I think this is a really important question. Whenever I hear the phrase collateral damage, or I hear objections to language or claims that it's not the same, do you think that if Hamas was hiding in Israel, the Israeli army would be pursuing the same tactics in pursuit of them with regard to civilian life?
No, I don't.
Well, there it is. Why not?
Because Hamas are the enemy in another country. It would be a terrorist situation.
It is a terrorist situation. But why would they not go after Hamas with the same tactics in Israel that they're going after them in Palestine, in Gaza?
For obvious reasons.
Well, tell me what they are.
Because they wouldn't be... If they were in a hospital, people do get killed in hospital situations. Yeah. They do eventually storm buildings, and the hospital...
But why is collateral damage acceptable in one...
I didn't say it was acceptable.
Okay, why is it collateral damage then if it happens in Gaza but not if it happens in Israel?
The motivation is different between the murderous death cult.
Yes,
and
I agree.
The Israeli
I completely agree. But that's why I'm not asking that
so
question.
When you say words like they're doing it on purpose and it's out of revenge, you have absolutely no proof that they are killing
I didn't say they were
people.
doing it on revenge. I said families of the victims of Hamas attacks have warned Israel's government that revenge is not a policy amid mounting concerns about civilian casualties in Gaza. You don't get to put words in my mouth, but you do get to answer.
Say that, and also
you do get to answer my question. Why would it be different for the Israeli army to...
I would say they're less likely to do that.
No, but this is the question. Why would they be less likely to go after Hamas in the same way if they were hiding in Israel that they are if they're hiding in Gaza?
Because there would be Israelis there.
Pardon?
And they would care more about Israeli lives than Palestinian lives. But they're also...
And that's it. That's all I wanted, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your honesty.
Well.
It's 10 foot. Right, no, you carry on. Talk about the hostages.
Yeah, well, they're being criticised for ignoring the plight of the hostages. So they are willing to make them collateral damage, if you like. And
okay.
you said that.
Yeah, no, I think that seems possible to me, and I think that's pitiful as well. But what you're doing is edging ever closer to the thing that you described at the beginning of your call as false equivalence.
I'm just saying you've got to be careful with language.